Alright troops, welcome back to the Red Room with me, MG. In the last episode we were looking at how to write a song and record it. Today we're going to be looking at mixing that song, mastering it and getting it ready for digital distribution. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. In the dark you may find there's no... Okay, so let's take a little look at what we've got here. I've gone through and I've completed the song to my liking. So what we can see here is these orange bits. That's the bits that's left over from the structural segment of the song that I did in the last episode. So these are the only bits that have survived. Everything else has been re-recorded. So just looking at what we've got here, we've got our drums, we've got the bass guitar, we've got all of our guitars all panned out as we discussed in the last episode. We've got an acoustic guitar, we've got a MIDI instrument here which is a heavy metal rock organ sound. We've got 2 tracks of guitar picking, which is just a nice ambient thing it's got going through the verses. We've got another thing called Black Hole, which is just another atmospheric sound. We've got some more picking reverbs, so lots of things just scattered around the song to give it lots of atmosphere. We've got an introductory guitar solo part. We've got the actual guitar solo that's midway through the song. We've got some megaphone vocals just for one segment. We've got some lead vocals, the lead vocal double track. Now that is not duplicating the vocal track, that is going and re-singing on a new track the exact same thing I sang before. And then I've doubled that up again, so I've gone and sang another third track for the chorus and certain other parts where I think it just really fills out the sound and makes it massive. I've got one track for just a scream, which is great because I just want that one with a bit of tons of reverb on it and stuff. And then I've got a grouped bunch of tracks here for backing vocals. So I've got 6 tracks of backing vocals, and I've got them all grouped together into one stack. Now how you group into stack is, say I want to put on my lead vox in one stack, I just select them all, right click and create track stack. What that allows you to do is to be able to take all 3 of those and adjust, say, the volume of all 3 at the same time without having to go and do each one individually. You can also apply filters to that, so I can add a delay reverb to all 3 at the same time, which is better than doing each individual track in turn. So very helpful little thing. Yeah, so that's our tracks. The structure is kind of just moved on a little bit from the last video, so I've got a bit more of an intro here, a softer kind of intro that builds up into a sort of full-on part, verse, bridge, chorus, and then if you remember there was a little guitar riff that I'd come up with that I thought I might work into the song, and it's just fitted in here perfectly. Just a nice little kind of Brit rock groovy kind of thing, and then back into a nice clean verse with full-on guitars, a lot more of the picking guitars coming through. Then I've got a bridge chorus. I've got another chorus that's got just a little bit more going on, a little bit of a different vocal melody, then guitar solo, then into a break, and then 2 choruses at the end, one with a slightly different, more full-on kind of lead vocal, and then going into that little bridging part, that little guitar thing. I've got that kind of looping here, just to as the outro to the song. So that's the structure. So that's all come from what we were thinking about in the last episode about how to just move things around, get your structure right, you're happy with it, and then start laying down those final elements. So this is it with all the final elements down. So yeah, that's kind of it for the track review. Okay, so we are going to look at mixing. One of the first things I like to do when I start mixing is to come down and clip away all the stuff I don't need. So if I've got a big track, let's look at, say, this guitar part. See how there's a kind of line here? That's showing a bit of empty space. Now if I zoom in on that particular part, so we can see that this guitar kind of rings out. If I listen to that just on its own, kind of ends about there. So what I want to do is just clip off this part here. So I'll do Command T, which just acts like a pair of scissors and snips that bit off, and then I can just delete it. So I've gone and done that with pretty much every part of the track. So you see there's, if you were to record this like a vocal, just right the way through from start to finish, it would be one big long complete waveform, kind of like we've got for the bass up here. But I've gone and clipped out the bits where I'm not singing. And part of the reason I do that is because there's always little ambient sounds going on when you're recording. That might be just a clear of your throat. It might just be, you know, moving in your seat if you're sitting down, or, you know, just anything blowing against the microphone, or even, you know, dogs and cats outside or something. It'll pick up all these little ambient. If you've got a really good stereo mic, it'll pick that stuff up. So we want to just get in and clip all that stuff out so it doesn't end up on your final recording. So the next thing I want to talk about is just the actual process of how I recorded this. So as I was putting down this new bass line, what I wanted to do was isolate just the bass and the drums, and maybe one guidance guitar. So I would put on my drums, my bass, and then I would have my guitar, for example. So if we listen to it kind of from here, what I was doing was latching on to what the drummer's playing. Now it's an AI drummer here, but it's the same principle as playing with a real drummer. Is I'm focusing on what the drums are doing and making the bass follow it. And if the bass does something interesting that ought to be leading the drums, then I'll go back and alter the drums to match what the bass is doing. So it's a bit of a kind of like trial and error going both ways, but what you want to do is to get the bass and the drums really tight, so that you know, because that's the percussive element of the whole song, and you want that to be absolutely spot on. You don't want any drift, you want it to be super tight. Now that's very difficult to hear if you've got the full song going on. In the dark you may find. So that is why you isolate bass and drums together, so that you can hear exactly what they're doing without any distraction, and allows you to get it super tight. So always do that. Get your bass and drums, even if you're doing it MIDI, just making sure that those two things are latched together. And then going back and fixing all the guitar parts, making sure that they are sitting in line with what the bass and drums are doing, and then you can build the song out that way. So then I'd added in an acoustic guitar. So I'm just going to go and talk a little bit about how we apply some of the EQing and the filters to that. Now the acoustic guitar is a very good one as an example, because it's something that comes in, you're not going through an amplifier. You're just recording it with a microphone in front of the sound hole. Now, the microphone I use is the AKG that you saw in my equipment rundown video. It's a very good microphone. I used to use it for vocals before I upgraded to my Neumann microphone. But this is a studio condenser microphone. It sits in a little cradle, and I just pop it on my desk on a little stand, and then I stand up and play the guitar along with it. Now I play this Breedlove acoustic guitar, and I basically just have the microphone sitting in front of the sound hole here. Yeah, so it'll just sit here, and the actual you can line up the bit inside the microphone, the condenser part, so that it's in line with this, and it picks up all of the tones that come out of here. Don't put your microphone anywhere else, because it's pointless. This is where the sound comes from. So yeah. So it will come in dead. You're not adding any effects to it. All the effects are added once we get into the mixing process. So let's listen to the acoustic guitar. I'm going to turn off everything and let you hear what it sounds like on its own. So dead, there's no reverb, no ring. What I will do is I'll go and add some compressor to it, and that basically just kind of limits everything down and keeps it so it's not spiking and causing distortion. And that's just set on a preset called Bright Guitar. And then I will go and add my tube EQ. This tube EQ is fantastic. It's like the old kind of like rack mounted units that you get with the valves, the tubes in the back, that take a minute or so to warm up. Back in the old days, how you used to record things. But basically it allows you to go and like boost your bass, boost your treble, also to adjust the attenuation of these. Now the attenuation is just kind of like the intensity of that wave, and it kind of opens it out. So if you've got something which is quite trebly, it can be quite harsh if it's got a narrow attenuation, but if you open it up, it kind of softens it slightly but keeps the tone. So it's a very good thing to get in and muck about with here. And you've got something here for the dip frequency and amount, which mucks about with the kind of mid-range things as well. Absolutely beautiful results out of this, and it's just located under in Logic Pro. It's located under EQ, Vintage EQ Collection, and I apply that to my bass, all my heavy guitars, my vocals, acoustic, basically anything acoustic that comes in as a waveform, anything that is fed in that isn't MIDI, I'll go and apply that kind of EQ to it. So also the final thing that I do is I've got one bus set up. Now a bus is like a separate track that you can have a bunch of filters applied to. So I've got this one just sneaking away in the background here, this bus 2, and it's got some space elements added into it to create reverb, like a reverby room sound, and a bit of channel EQ. So when I go and apply that bus to this, I can actually increase this little thing here. I'm moving it up. I can increase the amount of several different effects at any time, rather than just coming in and saying one effect and mucking around with it. So bus, add a bunch of stuff to it, and then you can increase it. So let's hear it at 0, and then I'll turn it back up to where I had it, which was about here. And basically what it's doing is trying to emulate being in a slightly reverby kind of room. And that's a lovely sound. It adds so much space. Once you add that reverb in, rather than it being dead center and dead, it opens it right back out. But you don't want to try and do that before you record it. Record it dead and then add the effects. Don't try and add effects to like the acoustic guitar or the vocals before it comes in, because you can't take it away once it's been added. It's better to have nothing and then add it than trying to remove it. Yeah, so that's the acoustic guitar. Anything else like the organ here, that is just coming in as nature intended it. It's already set up, so you don't really have to do anything with that. But if you go and double click on this little icon, it gives you all the features of that particular organ, and you can go and pull things, move this up and down to give yourself different sound effects. And it's a very cool thing to go and muck around with if you're a keyboard geek like me. And then other effects we've got here. Here's one called Black Hole. Now this is just effects that have been added to my electric guitar, which is different from doing the acoustic. You want to capture all of the effects as you're inputting it, or maybe not. You might want to do it clean and use the features within the DAW software to do it. But basically in my Kemper I've got a setting for this kind of rotary sound. Basically what it is like a Leslie cabinet, which was a speaker that had a built-in cone that rotated, and it gave you a kind of woo 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 kind of addition to the sound, a tremolo kind of effect. And I call it Black Hole because it's the tone that's used in the slide guitar part at the start of Black Hole Sun by Soundgarden, and it's such a beautiful sound. Listen to this. Isn't that superb? And that's the rotor going absolutely doolally. It's going really fast. Otherwise it'd be going wong, 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 wong. That was going it's a great sound. I loved it since I heard Soundgarden deploy it in that absolutely classic rock song. So yeah, that's some of the effects that can be added either before using your guitar emulator or afterwards if it's acoustically done, adding it as features as part of your filters down here. And you really need to go and play with those and find your sound. I've got a lot of presets now which define my sound, so you know, when people hear my music they go, oh, that's MG because it's got that guitar sound or that vocal sound. It's because I've saved all that. I've spent time just getting all of those things absolutely right. So that's a great part of probably the precursor to mixing, is getting all of those sounds right. For me, mixing is the process of finalising all of those things that you've used and trimming off the crap you don't need and changing the levels. So that's what we're going to go and look at next in the mixing element of it, is mucking around with all of those things.
I saw you again.
So let's look at mixing. The very first thing we want to do is get our levels right. Now, our levels are broken down into two groups. So you've got the kind of bedrock instruments of the song. In a rock song like this, it is your drums, your bass, and your big heavy guitars. That's the bedrock. Once you've got the levels for those right, they can just sit there and they're unlikely to change other than making them all fade in or all fade out. The other stuff that lies on top of that is the kind of ambient stuff or the solo stuff. So the ambient stuff is like your guitar picking and any reverby things like synthesizers that kind of live in that ethereal part up the top. Bedrock, guitars, bass, drums. Ethereal is your those kind of instruments such as synths and picked guitars. And then what you've got in between all of that, in the soundscape, on the horizon, if you like to think of it that way, is the solo instrumental, the solo parts of the song. So that is like maybe a guitar solo at the start of the song, then the vocals, then there might be like another full-on guitar solo, or a trumpet solo, or some emphasized keyboard riff or whatever, and then back to the vocals. Because you don't want things competing with each other. It's what is the focus for the listener? What are they listening to? There's a song, there's a guitar solo. That's what I'm focusing on. Now I'm focusing on the vocals. Then I'm going to go and focus on something else. So it's always making sure that those things have priority. So what I like to do is, and I've just got selected here my drums, my bass, an acoustic guitar, and my vocals. So when I play that, let me just set it up here.
In the dark you may find.
These for me are the priority parts of the songs, and I'll add the guitar bits on in a second. I just want to get these bits right first. A little technique is to see this master volume here. That's this sort of cerise coloured track called Stereo Out. If I drop the volume of that right down, and make sure it's on read and not on write, because if it's on write, it'll record you dropping the volume and it'll remember that you've dropped the volume. So when you play it back, the volume will go down. Make sure it's on read. Drop the volume and then give it a listen. See how it's much quieter? What I'm doing is listening to make sure that none of these things has a priority. So I can hear my bass, my drums and my vocals all at the same level. And that's about right for a song. Bass, drums and vocals all kind of sitting audibly at the same level. Now, if you were to look at where the levels are actually sitting, my lead vocals are sitting at minus 1.9, the bass is sitting at minus 8.6. When I'm talking about levels, I don't mean that they're all at the same number. I mean that they have the same prominence, because things can be recorded louder or quieter. The bass, if we were to look at the waveform for the bass, and let me just expand this out, look at that, it's a great big fat thing. And then if I go and look at the vocals, there you go, it's a skinny little thing compared to the bass. So if I was to turn the bass up to minus 1.9, it would be overpowering. So it's all about what can you hear. Don't look at the numbers. The numbers are just a guide. So there we go. With the three of those all together. I can still hear them all clearly. And that's the beauty of dropping it right down, is it allows you that, because as you fade it away to almost nothing, like if I put it down even further, to almost the very bottom. Like I'm really struggling to hear it, but I can hear the bass, the drums and the vocals still. So that starts you off with your mix. Then you can go and add in like all your fat guitars, all your bedrock stuff. Boom. Then do the same thing. Drop it right back down and see if it still works. Like I can still just hear those guitars. So for me, that's a good mix. And that was that little guitar riff that I came up with in the last video, and I think that works really well. So the other things we've got in here are, here is our organ. Well, I'll go and turn everything else off, because everything else that we're dealing with now is the ethereal stuff. We've got the bedrock stuff sorted. The only other one I would pay special attention to is the vocal mix. So if I go and select, there's my lead vocals, my double, and remember for double, that is not a duplicate of the previous lead vocal, that is another take of the vocals. And one of the most important things to do is when you're recording those, so this is me, I've sung it once and then I've gone back and sang it again on another track, is to make sure that each performance that you have is kind of latched onto the other one. So when you're doing your vocals, keep the bass and drum on and maybe one guide guitar, and then sing your vocal part. And then for the double track, just have those ones isolated so that you can really focus your singing part to latch on to what you were doing in the other singing part. And try and make sure that they start and stop and that the timing is the same for each take. So if you're looking at this here, where I've done the double take, they're starting and stopping at the same time. And any peaks, like there, are occurring in the same place. Because if they're not, it sounds like two people singing out of time, and you want it to sound like two people. Like I can see there's two people, but they're both doing everything at the same time, correlated with each other. So it's worth taking time to make sure that your takes are spot on and that your timing's right. You had masters of that like Freddie Mercury. Brian May always said that when Freddie was laying down his vocal tracks, his timing, his internal metronome was so spot on that you could hardly tell the waveforms apart. They looked identical. Mine's look quite similar, but then if you look in here, slight difference in there, just where I've done something slightly different with my throat. Only a master like Freddie could get that absolutely spot on. So that's a very key thing to do. And then when it comes to actual mixing those down, so there's my 3 lead vocals and there's my backing vocals. Again, you go and listen to them and start to move your backing vocals up or down to be the right level compared to your lead vocals. So let's take a listen to those.
Hold on tight, I've got your back again. I won't let you fall.
So that's a nice mix for me. And you don't really know until the entire, you think you're going to get it in position and go, that's a good mix. But it's not until you hear absolutely everything going on And then those backing vocals have then got to compete with the bedrock full-on guitars. That's where you might just go and just lift it a tiny little bit, so it's lifting it above the level of the guitar so you can really hear those vocals. Or make sure some of the vocals are panned hard left and hard right, and they might not compete as much. I always have my backing vocals, I do like 4 takes. So I've got 2, this is me in the middle, I've got 2 that sit about here and then 2 that sit away out here, and it spreads it out, just the same way that we do with the guitars. And then like a third one as well added on, which you can put wherever you want to kind of fill out the sound. But only in certain places. I'll always add like a minimum of like 4 or 6 backing vocal tracks, because my part of my sound is like a gang vocal kind of thing. It's very like we all stand together sort of thing. So gang vocals really work for me. So, you know, I'm either singing big fat harmonies or it's me singing the same things 6 to 8 times. And sometimes just for fun, I'll go and stand at different parts of the room when I'm shouting things. You know, if I'm shouting something offensive, I want it to sound like a football audience, so a crowd. So I'll stand at different parts of the room, and it just gives it slightly different tones, and it makes it sound even more like a gang of people singing it, like in a pub. Ooh, hooligans. Once you've got all that together, then we can start to get in and muck around with the levels of the solo stuff and make sure that where things should have prominence, that they have them and they're not competing with other things. And we do this through automation. So see this little icon up here? That is the automation button to show and hide it. And you'll see I've got all these yellow lines with things going up and down. What those are, they can be for anything. So they can be for the amount of effect of something that you're adding in, so the amount of delay. It might be your panning, so I can move things whilst the song's playing from left to right and back again to make it sound like it's swirling around your head. But all of this is just pure volume automation that I've got going up and down. So basically it's the same as coming in here and manually moving these flyers, the fader switches up and down. So let me just play this and keep your eye on the lead vocals. So let me just highlight it for you so you see which one I'm talking about. This track here, lead vocals. I'm going to hit play and just watch what the fader does, the slider.
In the dark you may find there's no reason to go on.
So you see it was going up and down. So it's remembering where things were. And this harks back to, I guess, the late 70s or in the 80s when they mechanised these faders on the actual mixing desk. Before that you had to do everything manually. And then they put motors inside it that allowed that thing to go up and down, and it was hooked up to a computer. So when you played it back, it remembered where it was. And it was lovely to watch a mixing desk with all of a real mixing desk, as opposed to a digital one like this, with all the faders going up and down. It looked like a ghost had come in. You know, like those pianos that play themselves in Disneyland. One of those kind of things. It's kind of like that. It's really cool to watch. Anyway, flying faders, that's what those are. So, yeah, let me just zoom in on one particular bit. So, say for example, I had a bit of my song that was just a little bit too quiet. So see, I don't know if you can see in here, this is part of my lead vocals double. This segment here looks a little bit quieter, and you can tell it's quiet by the height of the wave. As it gets louder, it gets more spiky, so you can see this bit is louder and this bit's quieter. So if I wanted to enhance that one bit, I would click here and then just again next to it. Let me just increase the size of this so you can see. And then I might do another 2 clicks here. I can then go and grab this bit and lift it up. And that's increasing the volume. So the volume's down here, the fader, and then the fader will suddenly whoop, slide up to here and make that one bit louder. So that's how we add automation. And of course I can make things quieter by dragging it down the way. And you always see the decibel number register here. So you've got some sort of idea. And then if you want to get rid of it, you can either double click it, or you can just click and drag over them and hit delete, and that'll wipe them out. Make sure you're not dragging over the whole thing, because it might select the actual waveform and delete it by mistake. I've done that a few times and had to hit Command Z to bring it back. So there's a couple of wee spare ones down there. I'm going to delete those. Yeah, so that's automation. Okay, next thing, I want to talk about the start and end positions of the song. So this yellow bar at the top, that's the width of your play. That's your track width. So over at the start of the song, and if I zoom in on that, so you can see there's the bass guitar. That's zoomed right in. This is the waveform for it. I could go and clip that down a wee bit if I wanted to. So it starts, boom, right on that very first note. Let me zoom out a little bit. Wee bit more. You see where the drums are coming in. Yeah. So this is the start of the song. You always want like a wee split second before everything starts. Because if that yellow bar was sitting over here, I would be clipping off. When I bounce this down, it'll forget about everything to the left of that. And the same at the end of a song. If I go to the end of a song here, there's a lot of space here. So why have I left a lot of space there? That's because songs don't generally end silence. There will be like a cymbal smash that gets hit, and it will ring for about 6 seconds. So just listen to the end of this song. Cymbal's still going. And it stops. It's stopped by now. So I leave just a little bit, a second or so after it stopped ringing. And don't do it too soon, or you'll hear it go psh, and that just sounds crap. You want it to go to absolute silence before the end of a song. So yeah, just be careful when you're clipping your start and end point of the song. Another part of mixing, is part of the fine tuning of the process, is going back and listening to the individual tracks for mistakes. Because when you're listening to the whole song in its entirety, something might be obscured. It might be there, but you just don't hear it. And then it might be a year later where you go, oh shit, I played a major instead of a minor chord. This is the time to go back and fix it, punch in. So go and listen to each one of your tracks individually and just make sure they're doing what you want them to do. If there's a tiny little vocal fuck up, where you're just slightly flat, there are ways of going in and fixing it. Logic Pro has this thing called Flex that allows you to go in and muck about with those elements. I'm not going to do it here. I don't want to change anything because I don't hit that many flat notes, but I have done in the past. And rather than go and re-record the whole thing when it's just a one tiny little thing, you can go in and just tweak it. So go and watch some videos on how to use Flex. Those things can be quite handy just for minor little fixes. Don't go buggering about with your entire vocal performance using Flex. You're better to push and do a take that's right. It's for minor fixes. Don't kid yourself that you're a brilliant singer who hits all the notes. Take the time and effort to become a good singer and learn to sing well and use your diaphragm and your throat and everything in the right way to make sure you're hitting those notes. It's better to be honest than kind of making computers fix everything for you. And you get so much more enjoyment out of it when you know you've done everything yourself. So yeah, you can use Flex just to do tiny little corrections. Now let's talk about panning. Now I've showed you before the left and right panning. I move things to this speaker and to that speaker. But when I was talking about the bedrock guitars, bass, drums, and then the ethereal stuff, the synthesizers and the guitar picking, how do I get things to lift away out of the rest of the song and stand out? You know, they're never going to stand out entirely, but there's a great little feature in this called binaural panning. So see, this is just normal panning, and I can go left or right like that. Let me just put it back to 0. The binaural panning's got a slightly different look, and I select binaural panning by going to here and choosing binaural panner. Then when I click on that, it's got this kind of like, it's as if you're looking down on the room, and dead center is you, the listener, and that green dot, that's the performer. So as I move them, that's them getting further away from you, and you can have a spherical view as well, and you can move that. It's not doing it just now, I don't know why, but you can kind of move it around the space so it's like floating above your head. It's fantastic, the ability to just be able to place these in different parts of the room. And what I've done with my guitar pick here is I've got one sitting there in the room, and that's left and right, so that's how far things pan out. So it's getting further away, panning, but also kind of like the further away up into the stratosphere in your ethereal range. So I've got one set to there, and then this guitar pick, I've got it set, if you can see in the little thing down here, it's sitting behind me, back there. So I've got one track over here doing something and one track here doing something, and they're not competing with everything that's sitting down here. So it's a nice way to kind of like work out where things are going to sit in the room. So I've quite often in songs just sit and shut my eyes and get the binaural panner and move things around until I'm like, that guy would be sitting about there. So it's like, put the musicians in the room. You're sitting there in the middle as the listener, and you're like, well, the drummer's there, the bass player's standing just to the left of him. So you see my bass is panned just slightly to the left, because he's going to be standing looking at the drummer, locked onto what the drummer's doing. That's where a bass player would actually stand in real life. Apart from the heavy metal ones with their foot on the monitor. But a good bass player will be standing right next to the drummer. And his amp's going to be near him so he can hear it. And then you've got your guitars are going to be standing either side. But if you've got like, say, it's like folk music, for example, where you've got a bunch of guitarists, all with different sized guitars, and a banjo player, and someone on a harmonica, and someone on a squeeze box, and someone on a skiffle, they're going to be sitting all in a bit of a circle around you. So you go, right, well, there's a bass player standing there, an acoustic bass player, and then there's going to be another wee guitarist here, and there's a guy with a violin who's going to be sitting here. So you can almost kind of draw a map of where you think everyone's going to be sitting. So draw yourself a little picture, and then go and make sure that they're panned and binaurally panned into the right place, and you'll get this lovely ensemble that aren't competing with each other. And then you got your headphones on, you're like, oh, there's Davies over there with his violin, and Shuggy's over there with his guitar. It really helps to kind of visualise that soundscape and where people are going to sit. The last couple of things I want to talk to you about in the mixing process, they're kind of like final edits. So you might want to adjust a break in your song. So let me just zoom in on this bit over here. This was one part of the song that I fixed, and both the things I want to talk about are in here. This break, let me just adjust it back to what it was before I fixed it. Song would, come on. The song would break there, and that wasn't there. So let me just cut that out and listen to what it used to do.
Can't be as strong as a rock together.
And I thought it would be nice if the song ended just a wee bit earlier, or that break ended a wee bit earlier.
As strong as a rock together.
So what I did was I went in and I clipped these I mean, I did 2 clips. So this bit here, that's just the end part of the guitar where you go da na 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 and slide your fingers down. So it's not a dead stop. Not that stops go, but yeah, it's not a dead stop. It kind of rings out, and I wanted to keep that ring out. So I trimmed it there. Then I went back and I trimmed all of these things, including the drums, and deleted that. And then, so that I've got the drums ending on that final beat, I just need to pull this out one bit. So it's got that final beat there. And then move these clipped bits over to here. So now,
We can be as strong as a rock together.
and then I also decided that I maybe wanted a beat coming in before. It's nice for it to stop and have that silence, but I needed a little bit of a cue, like a drummer would have a cue for everyone else to come back in, so the song would naturally do this.
Be as strong as a rock together.
So I needed a double beat, and try as I couldn't get the AI drummer to do it. So what I did was I clipped a little bit of drums, so kind of like this. Clipped a little bit of drums, and then I did this. I converted it to a MIDI region. That allows you to go in and treat it as a MIDI instrument. So that's my kick drum. And I can go and move it to where I want in the song, or I can make it something else. So it's a kick, or I can move it to a hand clap. There's a hand clap. So if the AI can't do it, you can always override it and convert it to MIDI. So what I did, let me just delete that. There. So what I did was this, and then I moved them, and every time you play it back, pretend you're a drummer and go so you know if it's exactly where you think it should be. Now what I did was there's a snare there, and then there's a mid-tom. So that's like your 1, 2, 3, third tom down, not your floor toms. So it's the drummer is hitting the snare and the mid-tom, ding ding, like that. But I also wanted a splash of cymbals. Now, unless you're an octopus or Lord Krishna with all the arms, you can't play all 3 of those things at once, but I needed it to happen, so I put a splash in. So now it goes snare, tom, smash at the same time. So 3R drummer going bling bling. And this is how it sounds.
As strong as a rock together.
So there you go. That's how you do those little fixes. Overriding what the AI is doing and clipping off, making things stop earlier and making it still sound authentic based on your original performance. So that's us from a mixing perspective. If there's any questions, please bung them in the comments. And I'll try my best to maybe do another video that covers things that you'd like to know more about. In the meantime, I'm going to move on to another feature of the whole process called mastering. Okay, so next thing we want to discuss is mastering. Now, what in the bejesus is that, Michael? I hear you say. So, mastering is the process in between your final mix and the distribution of your music. So it's basically, in the old days, what it meant was you recorded everything, you mixed it, and you put a final master tape together. So a big reel-to-reel tape, a 1/4-inch tape. You would send this to a mastering house, who would then go and further refine it and EQ it to get it ready to appear on vinyl or CD. Or even today to MP3 format. So these guys, they're like wizards. They deal in an area of music where their ears are just so finely tuned, they'll take anything in and just know what needs fixed. They've got the full spectrum of the EQ, and it's just tiny little nudges here and there, moving things around. They're absolute geniuses, these masterers or masturbators or whatever they're called. Masterers, I would assume is the correct title. But yeah, I would still utterly recommend that. If you're going to vinyl or CD with anything that you've done, please, if you've got the money, go with these guys, because they'll make your stuff sound amazing, and it's an art form that should never die. But if, like me, you're a pauper and you've just not got the money to go and do it, then you should be looking into the DAW software's version of mastering. So let me just close this down and reveal this. So on our 3 stereo art channel, which is this one here that always appears in this part, you've got by default a little button here that says mastering, and what you do is you click that, and then the first time you do it, you would say reanalyze section, and it goes and it scans through your entire song from left to right. All of it takes all the information in from the MIDI files, from the audio files, all your levels, all the filters, everything you've done to it, and it suggests the correct mixed mastered EQ. So that's this line that you're seeing here, the big pink wobbly line. Now you can go and just make little shifts to that. So there's these 3 grey buttons. If I go and lift that, you see how it's kind of doesn't allow you to do much else other than move this up and down, and everything else just kind of moves with it. So yeah, just undo what I did there. And the same with the middle EQ and the high EQ. So it's basically simplifying it as much as possible for you. You can also go and change the dynamics of it, so you can excite, will just make it more trebly, and more attacky in the noise. It excites the sound. It excites quite a good term for it. And then you've got the loudness. So when you do your initial analysis, I tend to find it comes in a bit too quiet. And I always need to crank it up. Now you want to be cranking up as it's playing, and if you watch your stereo out, you'll see the green bars come up here into the amber and then just peaking over into the red. And it's alright to just appear a wee bit in the red, but you don't want the red to be full on solid, because then you've overdriven the whole thing. So take a wee listen. So you see that there, watch the wee red bits. It's just on the very edge, it's starting to go into the red. That's as loud as you want it. You can also muck about with the stereo width of your tune as well. Now, to go full wide, that's great for things like a cinematic experience, I would say, like orchestration. It kind of pushes, not everything, but it kind of shoves a lot to the side. You know, like a big pile of sand. There's still sand there, but you're moving it to the side. And if you put it to the middle, it's like piling it up there, so the sound kind of congregates in the middle, but there's still some left over. So I'll let you hear what that sounds like. What was it on? 20. Right. So give a listen to what this will sound like. So right 0, right in the middle, is probably, it'll come up as being about right, and then because of your mix, the way you've mixed it, but the algorithm based on everything it's read will go, yeah, that's all right, but I think it needs to be a bit wider. So I can't remember if it suggested this or if I put it there, but yeah, that's kind of where it is. And if you listen back to the whole master, and then I'll put the bypass on so you can see the difference before and after mastering. Now, if you were with the actual mastering house, it would sound even better, but this gives you an example. So when I hit bypass, that's what you were hearing when you finished mixing and you thought that was great. You got it all mixed and went, oh, that's perfect. Can't be any better than this. Then you master it and it is way better. You couldn't believe that it could have been that much better, but it is that much better. Before, things were distorted and things weren't quite sitting right, and it just, mastering is a step you should never ever miss, and if you can pay for it, pay for the full service. Yeah, so that's mastering. Let's now go on to talk about bouncing. What is bouncing? Bouncing is taking your entire track, your fully mastered, mixed and mastered track, and bouncing it down to a final file. So on our stereo out channel, we've got this one that says BNC, that's bounce. Click that button, and we've got some options here. PCM, don't remember what that stands for, but that is basically for a high-res file. So you can do it as an AIF file, a WAV, or a CAF. WAV's quite normal, and this is going to be a high-resolution one, and you can change the bit depth here, the sample rate. It comes up as the defaults. I never need to touch it, or the format, splitter, interleaved. Again, you're into dark arts there. This is, for us novices, you'll never need any more than this. So this is a high resolution one if you wanted to burn it to CD and get CD quality. But most of the time you're just going to be wanting to output your MP3 here. And just go with the defaults. The only thing you want to click is write ID3 tags, and that's where you get all the tag information for your song. So in here it's got the name of the song, the artist. If you've got an album that you're putting together, you can give it the album name, the track number, 1 of, and then total tracks would be 10, for example. You put in your composer and lyricist information. That's kind of copyrighting it to you. This will work for copyright, because when you create a file, it has a creation date. So if I said that today was the 24th of February at 7:30 in the morning, then that's going to be what's on the file. But it's also going to have my name as the lyricist and composer, and I'll have a copyright date down here of 2025. So hopefully all that stuff would stand up in court if anyone ever stole your song and did something with it. You'd be able to say, no, this is mine. So yeah, that's your tags. If you wanted to add it to Apple Music, you would just click this and it would automatically put it into your Apple Music library. It won't put it into any others. That's on your local drive. It won't add it into the Apple Music service. So you just hit OK, and that will bounce the file down. You give it a name, but I've already got one. You see it in here in grey, In My Arms MP3. So I don't need to do another bounce. But yeah, that's it. So that's kind of like the whole process, from coming in, getting your tracks sorted, mixing and mastering and bouncing it down. So it just remains now for us to take a little listen to the song in its entirety. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it, and I'm going to bring up the lyrics so you can see, and if you want to have a wee sing along, because by now you should know the melody and you should be able to sing along with it. So please enjoy. That's the only reason I do this. It's not for financial gain. I wish it was, but it's not. It's just purely for me, because I write the songs I want to hear, but if you like them as well, I'm so happy. So please, if you like what you hear, like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll keep you updated, and I'll do album walkthroughs of other stuff that I've done. I'm also going to be looking at some other stuff, but let's get this song played and the lyrics, and you can see the fruits of our labours.
There's no reason
So that's it. Mixing and mastering of your songs. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, like and subscribe down below. In the next episode, we're going to be looking at how to distribute your music via platforms like Spotify. And in the episode after that, we're going to be looking at how to do collaborations with other musicians from all across the world via the BandLab website. That promises to be a heap of fun. Right, anyway, it just remains for me to say have an awesome day, chums, and I'll see you on the flip side. Love you long time. Ciao.